Hi sewing friends, welcome to my sewing room. My name is Beth, and if you're new, welcome. Today I'm going to be quilting this beautiful quilt. I did not make the quilt top, but I'm going to be putting some leaves and vines into this quilting, and it's really easy to do, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Let's get started. The first thing I did with this pretty quilt top is I got the 3 layers together, the backing, the batting, and the quilt top, and I used my 505 adhesive spray, temporary adhesive, and I sprayed the batting, just a light spray, and I smoothed the quilt top on there and worked from edge to edge, and then I did the same thing to the back. Someone spent a lot of time fussy cutting those center squares there, and I'm really happy to be able to get this quilt top into a usable condition. It's been folded up for a while and it needs to be used and enjoyed. After I made my quilt sandwich, I rolled up the quilt, just one side of the quilt, diagonally, because I'm going to be stitching diagonally through this quilt, and I'm going to start in the middle. Last time I did some free motion quilting, I had some issues with the tension, so I thought I better double check, and this is always a good idea to do before doing your free motion. Do a little test, and I had some leftover pieces from my last quilt, and there you go, a little piece of batting and 2 pieces of fabric, and as you can see, this is an old shirt. That's what I had been using. And my tension looks okay, so I'm going to start quilting on the quilt. I'm starting towards the center of this quilt. I'm aiming for the squares in the center there. I'll be going diagonally through the squares, and that will be my guide. So I'm kind of imagining a line going through the quilt, and then every so often I'm adding a freestyle leaf to my vine. As you can see, I'm going diagonally through these squares, and this is my first go at this design on this quilt. So I got the first line in with all those pretty leaves, and I'll go back and I'll begin on to the right of those leaves and that vine, and I'll do the same thing, just filling in as I go along. This is a very forgiving pattern. It's just nature, and nature is always different, and so every leaf on this quilt, of course, is very different. Some are small and some are big. I'm just trying to cover the quilt, imagining just a curvy line going through and adding some leaves. When I was done with all those pretty vines, I trimmed the batting, the excess batting and backing off, and now I'm going to add some binding with 2.5-inch wide strips. I'll join them, and then I will press this long binding strip in half, and this time I'm going to add it to the back of my quilt and roll it to the front and top stitch. There won't be any hand stitching on this quilt. I left myself a tail, and when I got to the first corner I stopped before the end, and then I pivoted the quilt and sewed off the corner. Then I will lift the binding up and then fold it back down right there on that seam that I just made, and I'll start sewing around, and I'll just do that all the way around this quilt. I left myself about a 10-inch opening. I have 2 long tails here, and I want one tail to be at least 2.5 inches. So the one on the left I have folded there, and I'm going to measure and make sure that that little tail becomes 2.5 inches from the fold. So I used that little leftover piece for my measurement, and I'll trim, and then I will put these 2 tails together, right sides together at a 90-degree angle, and then I will sew diagonally from corner to corner, and this binding should fit perfectly around this quilt. I always double check that everything is right before I trim off those little triangles, and it looks like I didn't twist anything, so I'm going to trim off my little triangles here, and then I will sew the binding down. I'll roll it to the front and do some top stitching. I'll make sure that I have the right color thread, and I do have this pretty blue thread in my drawer, so I'm going to pull that out and top stitch all the way around the binding. I'm really happy I was able to finish this beautiful quilt that someone started a long time ago, and to share with you an easy free motion design using leaves and vines. I think your leaves will probably look a little different than mine. Just have fun with it, enjoy the process, and thank you for sewing with me today. I'll see you next time.